Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Major Michael Cortez III, and I would like to welcome you to the Baltimore County Police Department's 2025 award ceremony. Please rise for the posting of our colors by our ceremonial honor guard unit, the singing of the national anthem, and Pledge of Allegiance by Officer Timothy Thulian, and the invocation by Chaplain Norman Lowenthal.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we've hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regland, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does their star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Gracious and mighty God, we thank you for this day and for the blessings that it brings. We pray for wisdom and understanding so that we may recognize your presence in all of the occasions of life, those that seem ordinary and those that are indeed extraordinary. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. This week, as our nation pauses to honor veterans, we are reminded of those who throughout history have answered a sacred call to serve something greater than themselves, to defend freedom, preserve peace, and protect their fellow human beings. Their courage and sacrifice continue to bless the generations that follow. In that same spirit of service, we gather tonight to recognize the men and women of the Baltimore County Police Department. individuals who have likewise answered a calling to stand between danger and safety, fear and reassurance, chaos and calm. You, O God, work through human hands and willing hearts. You choose your messengers to act on your behalf, to bring deliverance, protection, and peace. We acknowledge these messengers tonight, police personnel whose courage, compassion, and professionalism embody the finest ideals of service. May you continue to bless those who serve with strength, wisdom, and peace, and let every heart say, amen.
Thank you, Officer Delia. Members of the Ceremonial Honor Guard Unit, Chaplain Lowenthal. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce our distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until the last guest has been introduced. Robert O. McCullough, Chief of the Baltimore County Police Department. Alonzo Williams, Director of the Office of Community Engagement, representing the County Executive's Office. Chaplain Norman Lowenthal, Baltimore County Police Department Chaplain. Colonel Dennis Day Delp, Chief of the Administrative and Technical Services Bureau. Colonel Joseph D. Conger, Chief of the Criminal Investigations Bureau. Colonel Christopher M. Kelly, Chief of the Operations Bureau. Acting Colonel Major Daniel L. Kalazak, Jr., Acting Chief of the Professional Standards Bureau. Sergeant David Rose, President of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 4. Detective Trey Corbin, President of the Blue Guardians. Detective Heather Miley, representing the Association of Baltimore County Women's Police. Retired Lieutenant Marcy Camelli, Vice President of the Association of Baltimore County Retired Police. Mr. Harry Fox, representing the Baltimore County Police Assistance and Relief Fund. And seated to my right are the Executive Corps members of the Baltimore County Police Department. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guests. At this time, I will turn the program over to the Chief of the Baltimore County Police Department, Robert O. McCullough.
Thank you, Major Cortez. Good evening to our fellow officers, honored guests, and residents of Baltimore County. Thank you for joining us for this special event. Tonight, it is our distinct honor to gather and recognize the remarkable achievements of the members of the Baltimore County Police Department who have exhibited unparalleled dedication, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to the highest standards of service. This evening is a celebration, a tribute to the selfless sacrifices made and the extraordinary efforts undertaken by these exceptional individuals. We come together to honor those whose collective endeavors have significantly contributed to making Baltimore County a safer and more secure place for all of us. The awards presented tonight demonstrate that when crisis occurred, the character and courage of the officers here tonight became the foundation for their response. This annual ceremony also provides us with the opportunity to publicly thank our heroes for their exceptional performance. We extend our deepest gratitude to all of the honorees for their outstanding contributions and their dedication to upholding the values that make our community stronger and safer for everyone. Tonight, we say thank you to all of our award recipients for what you have done and what you will continue to do. You truly make the Baltimore County Police Department one of the best departments in this nation. Please enjoy the program by paying close attention to what these incredible and humble people did to make the quality of life in Baltimore County better. Congratulations to all honorees, and thank you very much for attending this evening.
Thank you, Chief McCullough. Throughout their careers, members of the Baltimore County Police Department are eligible to receive awards for extraordinary service provided to our residents. Departmental awards may also be presented to citizens who have provided courageous and selfless assistance both to our department members and others within our communities. Officers and residents are nominated for departmental awards by applications submitted to the Awards Review Board by their supervisors or coworkers. If the nominations meet specific criteria for a particular award, the Awards Review Board will approve the nomination for presentation to the officers and/or residents. The awards being presented tonight include the Emergency Service, Purple Heart, the Commendation, the Silver Star, and the Medal of Honor. Our first presentation is for the Emergency Service. The Emergency Service is the 5th highest departmental award for which any member is eligible. The Emergency Service is presented to an officer who, through personal sacrifice, attempted to save the life of another human being. Our first recipients of the Emergency Service Award are Sergeant Leonard E. Harper and Officer Jessadeep Kaur. On April 19, 2025, at 01:10 hours, Sergeant Harper and Officer Kaur of Precinct 11 Essex responded to Moe's Seafood and Lounge for a report of a shooting. To note, during this incident, Sergeant Harper was the acting shift commander, and Officer Kaur was approximately 11 hours into her shift, working overtime to maintain the shift's coverage. Upon their arrival, they located a victim suffering from 5 gunshot wounds and began to immediately render aid. Both members used their individual first aid kit to apply chest seals and a tourniquet. Their efforts to save the life of the victim were successful in controlling the bleeding. However, during the commotion of saving the victim's life, both members continued their awareness of their surroundings. While administering first aid, it was learned that the suspect was approximately 15 yards away from both members and still was in close proximity to the weapon used. Due to their quick responses and leadership, the suspect was arrested on scene after the arrival of additional units. If not for their courageous and selfless efforts to save the victim would have likely died from their wounds and the suspect would have escaped. Through personal sacrifice for which the member experienced physical and emotional hardship during life-saving efforts, the Emergency Service Award is presented to Sergeant Leonard E. Harper and Officer Jessadeep Kaur. Our next recipients of the Emergency Service Award are Sergeant Chad A. Cunup, Officer Gregory S. Parks, Officer Terrell D. Mordaunt, Detective George S. Soranis, Officer Andrew J. Meyer, and Officer Eric M. Stefanski. On November 19, 2024, at 06:24 hours, Officer Parks, Mordaunt, Meyer, and Detective Soranis responded to the area of Trapp Road and I-695 for a report of a suicidal subject on the overpass bridge. Upon arrival, they located the victim sitting on the bridge with her feet hanging over the edge. This prompted a massive coordinated response effort from numerous jurisdictions. Both the inner and outer loop of Interstate I-695 had to be shut down during rush hour, as well as Trapp Road. While coordinating this response, officers observed the victim climbing down onto a narrow concrete ledge beyond the security fence, clinging directly above Interstate 695. As the victim began lowering herself over the ledge, Officer Meyer swiftly grabbed her hands through the fence while Detective Soranis secured her by applying handcuffs. Officer Parks and Corporal Cunup then tied a fixed loop knot around the victim's leg using a rope, relieving pressure from her wrists and preventing a fall. The team then used bolt cutters to create an opening in the fence, allowing Corporal Cunup, Officer Mordaunt, and Officer Stefanski to pull the victim safely back onto the bridge. By their combined, coordinated, and compassionate actions, they saved the life of a woman who had just suffered the traumatic loss of the father of her children to murder. The officer's response reflects extraordinary teamwork, empathy, and dedication to public service. Through a personal sacrifice for which the member experienced physical and emotional hardship during life-saving efforts, the Emergency Service Award is presented to Sergeant Chad A. Cunup, Officer Gregory S. Parks, Officer Terrell D. Mordaunt, Detective George S. Saranis, Officer Andrew J. Meyer, and then Officer Eric M. Stefanski. Our next presentation this evening is for the Commendation Award. The Commendation Award is the third highest departmental award for which any member is eligible. It is presented to an officer who displayed courage and devotion above what is normally required, displayed intelligence during unusual circumstances, demonstrated initiative in solving a crime, or under certain circumstances arrested an armed and dangerous person. Our first recipients of the Commendation Award are Officer Michael E. Leatherman and Officer Zachary C. Schneider. On July 21st, 2024, an anonymous caller reported a sighting of a wanted subject in the Woodlawn area. The individual was wanted in Balmer City for the murder of a 12-year-old child in his care just 2 days earlier. Officers from Precinct 2 responded and conducted an initial search of the area. Officer Leatherman began conducting interviews and from his effort, obtained an accurate description of the suspect's clothing. Unfortunately, initial efforts to locate the suspect were unsuccessful. However, despite the call being cleared, Officers Schneider and Leatherman remained in the vicinity, maintaining surveillance where the suspect was last seen. Their vigilance and determination paid off when they successfully located the suspect without being detected. Acting swiftly, they apprehended him in a congested residential area. Due to their swift efforts in utilizing their training, the suspect was unable to reach for a handgun he had on his person. After a subsequent search, it was discovered the handgun found on the suspect was the same handgun used in a tragic homicide just 2 days prior. This key piece of evidence would be instrumental in the prosecution of the Baltimore City homicide case. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Officer Michael E. Leatherman and Officer Zachary C. Schneider. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Corporal Megan C. Stewart and Officer Enrique A. Kozinski. On October 24, 2024 at 12:25 a.m., Corporal Stewart, along with Officers Lagarde, Cantrell, and Kozinski, responded to an address in Owings Mills, Maryland, for a call of an armed suicidal subject who was under the influence of alcohol. Upon arrival, Officers Cantrell and Lagarde were led into the home by family, at which time both officers located the subject in the rear of the backyard, armed with an AR-15 rifle, and the subject's brother pleading with the subject to surrender. During this incident, the subject was pointing the rifle at his own head. Officer Lagarde began peaceful dialogue with the subject while Officer Cantrell simultaneously advised incoming units of possible crossfire dangers and, with knowledge of the area, provided specific roadways to be blocked. Shortly into the incident, the subject advised he had just committed a homicide in Baltimore City and was intending to commit suicide. Contemplating the situation even further was the subject's brother, who refused to leave the backyard. The shift commander, Sergeant Joseph Grossman, initiated a barricade event and requested a full SOD CNT call-out to the staging area, while Corporal Stewart, Officer Kaczynski, Officer Lagarde, Officer Cantrell continued handling the scene. Corporal Stewart, assuming control of the incident, continued to provide dispatch and Sergeant Grossman with vital information and direction, which aided both in the managing of resources to the scene. During a nearly 4-hour-long barricade, the officers maintained positive dialogue with the suspect, who eventually admitted to having just committed a homicide in Baltimore City. At numerous points throughout this incident, the suspect not only repositioned himself along the fence line of the backyard, but presented himself and his weapon in a threatening manner, which could have easily provoked a legally justified use of deadly force. However, the training and confidence of the members on scene were successful in avoiding any use of force. As a result of their actions and selflessness, they effectively de-escalated the situation to the end, leading to the suspect's peaceful surrender without further incident. Their teamwork and restraint were displayed with the highest level of competency and professionalism. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Corporal Megan C. Stewart and Officer Enrique A. Kaczynski. Our next recipient to the Commendation Award is Officer Antonio Johnson. On June 10, 2024, School Resource Officer Johnson was conducting his final rounds at Franklin High School at the close of the school day when he was urgently alerted by a staff member and a juvenile about an armed student in a classroom. Upon entering the room, Officer Johnson, along with school staff, identified the student in question. Officer Johnson removed the student from the classroom and escorted him to an empty room to conduct a search. As he began the lawful search, the student became increasingly irritated and refused to cooperate with the search. The student suddenly reached for his waistband and attempted to flee back into the school and general population of students. Officer Johnson tackled the student and struggled to place him under arrest. The struggle lasted approximately 4 minutes, during which time Officer Johnson and 2 staff members were physically assaulted multiple times. After being physically exhausted from the struggle, Officer Johnson was able to place the student into custody. Officer Johnson's immediate search of the student revealed a loaded polymer 80 handgun. The actions of Officer Johnson exemplify the highest standards of law enforcement, school leadership, and unwavering dedication to the safety of our students and our community. His selfless actions to protect the students and the faculty was evident in the over 4-minute ordeal. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Officer Antonio Johnson. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Captain Christopher P. Morgan, Sergeant Kimberly A. DeFelice, Corporal Isaac Thorne, Detective Jason M. Strickland, Detective Mark K. Roche, Detective Anthony Shelton, Detective David L. Dillard, Detective Justin C. Serio, Detective Matthew H. Horney, Detective Michael J. Flaherty. During the 2024 calendar year, the members of the Dundalk Investigative Services team demonstrated outstanding performance and unwavering dedication to their mission. Operating as a cohesive, highly collaborative unit, the team supported one another across a broad range of complex investigations. The team had a 35% increase in total cases assigned to them during the year of 2024 compared to 2023. In addition to this large increase across a broad spectrum of cases, this team was tasked with investigating a drive-by shooting trend. The team's ability to clear cases is just another highlight of their exceptional performance in 2024, clearing 76% of their cases. The national average of clearance rates for the same crimes investigated by members of the Dundalk Investigative Services team is roughly 25%. To highlight the drive-by shooting trend investigation, members of the Dundalk Investigative Services team investigated 40 separate shootings. 15 of these shootings were eventually connected after a several months-long investigation. This trend investigation began in June of 2024 when members of this team responded to and investigated a non-fatal shooting. This shooting would eventually be tied to a Baltimore City shooting. This Baltimore City shooting led members for both jurisdictions to a burglary within Dundalk Precinct that occurred just hours before the initial shooting. By way of a thorough investigation, members of both jurisdictions identified suspects to the original shooting within Dundalk Precinct, tied them to the burglary and to the Baltimore City shooting. The investigation led these aforementioned members to utilize advanced investigative techniques, ultimately identifying suspects and clearing the cases. As a result of their steadfast, unwavering devotion to clear this trend, the team served 44 search warrants, made 27 arrests, cleared a total of 19 cases, recovered 12 guns, and recovered 6 stolen vehicles. Their work did not end there. To this day, the results of the team's investigation are still used to communicate with local, state, and federal law enforcement partners as additional cases continue to be cleared. Their ability to manage high case volume while maintaining investigative quality exemplifies superior performance and a deep commitment to public safety. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Captain Christopher P. Morgan, Sergeant Kimberly A. DeFelice, Corporal Isaac Thorne, Detective Jason M. Strickland, Detective Mark K. Roche, Detective Anthony Shelton, Detective David L. Dillard, Detective Justin C. Sirio, Detective Matthew H. Horney, Detective Michael J. Flaherty. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award and/or Emergency Service Award is Officer Victoria Willick. On July 7, 2025, at approximately 16:01 hours, Dundalk patrol units were dispatched to a shooting that just occurred. Being the first officer on scene, Officer Luke Hubert observed the victim laying on the sidewalk. Nearby was the victim's girlfriend and child. Shortly thereafter, Officer Victoria Willick arrived and the two officers approached the victim. Neither officer was aware of the location of the suspect, but knew based off of the spent shell casings, a shooting was confirmed. Officer Hubert and Officer Willock both simultaneously began life-saving first aid on the victim. As Officer Hubert was doing chest compressions, he tossed his tourniquet to Officer Willock mid-compression for her to place onto the victim's wounded extremity. While conducting life-saving measures, Officer Willock ran back to her vehicle to obtain the postcar's medical kit. Even while both officers were completing these measures, they were simultaneously obtaining suspect information and broadcasting it to their responding fellow officers. Prior to additional officers on scene, Officer Willock continued life-saving measures by applying 2 chest seals, then ultimately taking over chest compressions. Officers were performing first aid on the victim, who is a large male, which required even more force to properly complete chest compressions. Both officers can be seen in the body-worn camera footage, sweating profusely and breathing heavily. Still, the officers continued their first aid while Officer Cook arrived and deployed his individual first aid kit. Officer Cook then continued sweeping the victim's body for injuries and continued placing life-saving medical supplies on his body. As officers continued their efforts, they communicated to one another when they required relief from performing CPR. Officer Reinhardt then arrives and deploys his individual first aid kit. He begins taking direction from Officer Hubert as to where the injuries are and where to apply the medical supplies. Shortly thereafter, Officer Reinhardt takes over CPR and communicates the intention to roll the victim over to expose his back in order to treat any injuries. Officer Hubert and Willock then cut the victim's pants and locate additional wounds before the arrival of paramedics. This group of officers had a multitude of hardships faced during their attempts to save the victim's life. For a total of almost 13 minutes, officers performed CPR in the street under temperatures of almost 100 degrees. The heat index was significant and made the act of giving chest compressions significantly harder, as the dense air made it harder to breathe and the heat wore on their endurance. During the time the officers were giving aid, it was never confirmed that the suspect responsible for the shooting was located, and it was a real possibility that he was still in the area. During the entire duration of time from the arrival of the first officer until the arrival of medics, aid was never paused. Each officer was constantly moving and performing an action to save the victim's life and provide responding officers a suspect description and a direction of travel. This incident highlighted the fact that the suspect was still outstanding in the small peninsula area in Dundalk, armed with a firearm and clearly willing to take a human life. Additionally, the officers worked under a real threat that they could be ambushed while working to save the life of the victim. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Officer Victoria Willock. Our next recipients of the Commendation Award are Sergeant Leonard E. Harper and Officer Alan M. Green. On May 10th, 2024, at 04:23 hours, Corporal Harper, Officer Green, and other patrol officers from the Essex Precinct responded to Greenlee Avenue for 2 subjects unconscious in a vehicle. Prior to their arrival, officers learned the registered owner had an outstanding warrant for his arrest. Once on scene, officers observed 2 occupants, later determined to be twin brothers, inside of the vehicle unconscious. In addition, an open alcohol container was observed in the center console. To prevent further risk to the public, officers placed the vehicle in front of and behind the suspect vehicle prior to attempting to wake the driver. Though initial efforts to wake the driver failed, officers gained access to the vehicle and removed the occupants. Due to several indicators of impairment as well as aggression, officers placed the driver, the wanted suspect, into custody and into a waiting patrol vehicle, but not before being assaulted by the same suspect. As officers waited for a prisoner transport wagon, the driver's brother began getting increasingly agitated at officers. One officer attempted to keep this suspect calm, but he only grew increasingly upset. As Officer Green walked over to assist his partner, the same suspect indicated he wanted to fight law enforcement. The suspect then stepped towards Officer Green, who attempted to create distance. This was met by defiance of the suspect, who once again stepped towards Officer Green. At that time, the suspect began his assault on Officer Green. Officers directed the suspect to the ground, at which time a struggle ensued. Officer Green was being struck on the face by the suspect, who then immediately reached for Officer Green's service weapon. Assisting officers removed the suspect's grip from Officer Green's weapon, but the assault continued. The suspect grabbed a fellow officer by the neck, applied pressure, and pinned her to the ground. While doing so, Officer Green, suffering from his own injuries, removed the suspect from his partner and called for assistance. Corporal Harper then could hear the call for assistance and rushed to help. As Corporal Harper arrived, he could see both officers were suffering the effects of being assaulted. Corporal Harper could see that the suspect had an advantageous position on top of Officer Green, who at this time was placed in an arm hold. Corporal Harper began delivering strikes and lawful orders to stop the assault on Officer Green. Corporal Harper felt an immediate surge of pain and believed he had broken his hand. Instead of concerning himself with his own injuries, Corporal Harper continued his devotion to free Officer Green from the suspect's assault. Officer Green and Corporal Harper continued communication of where the suspect was attacking Officer Green's person, causing Corporal Harper to see his use of force options were limited. He was unable to deploy his baton and OC spray in fearing of injuring fellow officers. At this point, Corporal Harper could no longer hear Officer Green speaking, therefore he figured he was unresponsive. At this time, the suspect was stating that he was going to kill Officer Green. It was at that moment Corporal Harper, fearing for his life of Officer Green, placed the suspect in a neck restraint. This caused the suspect to loosen his grip on Officer Green, who took a large gasp of air and began showing signs his airway was once again opened. Corporal Harper then rolled himself and the suspect in such a way that Corporal Harper placed himself on top of the suspect, who was now on his stomach. Still experiencing extreme pain of injury to his hand, Corporal Harper maintained the hold while Officer Green, also experiencing his own injury, rejoined the struggle. Corporal Harper and Officer Green continually communicated during this time and eventually were able to place the suspect into custody. A search incident to arrest revealed a knife on the same suspect's person. During the struggle, Officer Green was unable to breathe, his vision became blurry, and he feared for his life. The actions of Corporal Harper saved Officer Green's life and were necessary in response to the force against Officer Green, and the actions of Officer Green were vital in effecting an arrest where the suspect actively attempted to kill an officer. Both officers displayed courage and devotion to duty, demonstrated self-sacrifice, and arrested an armed and dangerous person. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award is presented to Sergeant Leonard E. Harper and Officer Alan M. Green. Our next recipient of the Commendation Award in Purple Heart are retired Officer Barry F. Jordan. On February 8th, 2023, at approximately 14:14 hours, Officer Barry Jordan, Officer April Burton, Officer David Allen, and other officers responded to 10905 Powers Avenue for a call of a suicidal subject. As officers arrived on scene, he observed two subjects standing in the driveway to the residence. However, one quickly fled inside. Officers then spoke with the sole remaining subject on the driveway, who was the suspect's father. The father stated his son may have a firearm in the basement, but after advising officers of this information, he too went into the house. Fearing for the safety of the father and wanting to ensure the welfare of the suicidal subject, officers entered the home. The officers then located the father inside of the home, who advised his son may have a rifle in the basement. The father then unlocked the basement door and began walking downstairs. Still fearing for the safety of the father, Officers Jordan, Burton, and a third officer followed behind him. As Officer Jordan, who was the lead officer, entered the basement, he heard the father state, "David, you going to shoot me?" Officer Jordan tactfully and cautiously looked around the corner of the doorway into the bedroom. Officer Jordan observed the suspect aiming a rifle at the doorway. Officer Jordan immediately warned his fellow officers and attempted to begin retreating. At that time, the suspect opened fire with the AR-15. As officers retreated back up the steps, the suspect traced their movement by shooting through the wall of the ascending staircase. All three officers felt and sustained the impact of drywall and plaster striking them as the rounds flew through the wall. Officers were able to make it back outside of the residence and immediately took cover, radioing for assistance, and began to create a perimeter around the home. Officers Jordan, Burton, and a third officer on scene not only addressed the threat from the home by covering the area with their firearms, but simultaneously diverted vehicle traffic out of the area to ensure the public's safety. At this time, officers began to assess one another. Officer Burton began assessing Officer Jordan more thoroughly when she discovered he was bleeding. This led her to believe he was struck by one of the rounds fired by the suspect. Officer Jordan remarked that he was okay, refused to leave, and stayed on scene. Officers Allen and Burton then began pleading with Officer Jordan to go receive medical attention, yet Officer Jordan remained committed to his fellow officers who couldn't leave. It took multiple demands by assisting officers and the assurance that the perimeter was covered before Officer Jordan left the scene to receive medical care. To this day, Officer Jordan still bears the physical implications of having been struck by 3 rounds. The bullet fragments and rounds that struck Officer Jordan still remain inside of him today. All of the officers on scene will forever bear the weight of this incident. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award and Purple Heart are presented to retired Officer Barry F. Jordan. Our final recipient of the Commendation Award and Purple Heart is Detective Jonathan N. Chi. On February 9, 2023, the manhunt for suspect David Lithicum was in its 2nd day. Countless Baltimore County police officers and allied personnel were conducting surveillance in the area around the residence of the suspect. Given this was the 2nd day of the manhunt, the decision was made to remove marked patrol vehicles from the area of the manhunt and replace them with nondescript vehicles with plain-colored detectives inside in order to minimize uniform presence and eventually allow the suspect to come out of hiding. At approximately 9:10 p.m., a call was dispatched in the area of Warren Road of a subject who was hitchhiking. Due to his proximity, Detective Chi began his response to the scene. As Detective Chi arrived in the area, he observed the male walking along the roadway. Detective Chi exited his vehicle and was immediately met by gunfire from an AR-15 at close range. Detective Chi was struck numerous times by gunfire in both arms, his thigh, rear buttock area, and face. Despite being struck numerous times by a high-powered rifle, Detective Chi not only radioed for assistance, but he returned fire, striking his vehicle that the suspect had entered and fled with. Within seconds, backup detectives arrived and began rendering aid to Detective Chi. Suffering from numerous gunshot wounds, Detective Chi instructed his fellow detectives where his injuries were and where to apply more pressure to. The detectives that were treating his wounds on scene immediately had the forethought to withdraw him from the area via a nondescript pickup truck. When he was in the back of the truck, he and the detective stayed in constant communication regarding his wounds. The communication was clear, calm, and direct. Detectives all worked hand in hand to deliver Detective Chi into the most advanced life-saving care at Shock Trauma. Due to his injuries, Detective Chi spent 10 days in shock trauma, followed by another 16 days receiving further treatment and rehabilitation. It should be noted that Detective Chi, throughout the incident, reassured his fellow detectives that he would be okay. He led those helping him by remaining calm and communicating effectively as to how they could help his wounds. Due to Detective Chi's bravery, suspect Lithicum was located in Harford County after a lengthy vehicle pursuit from Baltimore County. A subsequent barricade ensued inside a wooded area where eventually suspect Lithicum would be taken into custody. If it were not for Detective Chee's bravery and courage, suspect Lincecum's probability of escaping or even ambushing additional law enforcement officers would have been increased. Detective Chee's determination and grit to fight through his own injuries while clearly providing all information known to his fellow detectives and dispatchers clearly identified his courage, initiative, and dedication to his community. He embodied the core values of Baltimore County Police Department: integrity, fairness, and service. For courageous actions and initiative, the Commendation Award and Purple Heart is presented to Detective Jonathan N. Chee. Our next group of presentations will be receiving a Silver Star Award, the second highest award for which any member is eligible. It is awarded to an officer in recognition of service to the department and citizens of Baltimore County, wherein valor, courage, intelligence, and bravery are demonstrated above what is normally expected of an officer. Our first recipients of the Silver Star Award are Emergency Service Award included Officer Tony A. Taylor, Officer Andrew J. Helfenstein, Officer Paul M. Fleck, Officer Shanira M. Pierce. On January 9, 2024, at approximately 11:22 a.m., Baltimore County 911 received a call for a domestic disturbance at a motel in Pikesville, Maryland. The complainant reported that her boyfriend left the motel and was in possession of a firearm which was concealed in a black bag. Officers Fleck, Helfenstein, and Taylor responded to the area in which the complainant directed officers to, at which time the suspect was located inside of a convenience store. As officers entered the convenience store, the suspect stated, "Don't come any closer," and began to draw and point a handgun at the officers. As the officers retreated and took cover, they began to coordinate the large-scale response of additional officers. Officers effectively communicated with one another and formed a perimeter around the building while also maintaining a line of sight of the suspect inside of the convenience store. Over the next approximately 8 minutes, the officers and suspect remained in a standoff. During this time, officers identified a member to give commands as well as continued updating their dispatcher for the safe response of additional officers. While the 3 officers were outside, the suspect fired a single shot through the store's front door. Officers continued communicating to one another where the suspect was moving inside of the store until he began to exit the location. Upon exiting the store, the suspect raised his handgun and began discharging rounds at officers. Officers returned fire and ultimately incapacitated the suspect. Without acting on their emotion or stress, the officers held their positions and began giving commands to the downed suspect. Officers formed a contact team, identified an officer to provide medical care to the downed suspect, and utilized a ballistic shield to begin their coordinated, tactful, and safe approach to the suspect. Officers Fleck, Helfenstein, and Pierce were able to then place the suspect into custody and immediately began rendering aid. Life-saving measures included the application of tourniquets, chest seals, and pressure to the individual wounds. In the approximately 17 minutes the incident lasted, from the arrival of the first officer until the suspect was taken into custody, officers displayed courage, bravery, and unwavering dedication to not only each other, but to the communities they served. In the face of the threat from a firearm, officers worked together effectively and safely to ensure no innocent members of the public were harmed. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Officer Tony A. Taylor, Officer Andrew J. Helfenstein, Officer Paul M. Fleck. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Emergency Service Award is presented to Officer Shanira Pierce. Our next recipients of the Silver Star Award are Officer Sean M. Irwin and Officer Jacob M. Icarino. On 12/24/2024 at approximately 06:34 hours, Officers Irwin and Icarino, as well as other units, responded to an apartment complex in White Marsh for a call of a shooting. Initial comments indicated a neighbor knocked on the caller's door and advised they had been shot. Additional comments received into 911 indicated that there was a 25-year-old suspect on scene who may have also shot himself. To make a complicated situation even more dire, officers learned that there were 2 children inside of the involved apartment, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. As Officers Icarino and Irwin arrived, they began a tactical approach to the building. Once inside and on the 3rd floor, officers approached an apartment, at which time the door flung open. Both officers observed a female profusely bleeding from a wound to the head. She advised her apartment, which was the one involved, was 1 floor beneath them. Officers were advised by the female that her children had been shot and the suspect was still in the apartment. No verification was provided that the suspect had indeed shot himself. Knowing the suspect was armed and that children were inside of the apartment, Officers Icarino and Irwin selflessly made the decision to enter the apartment as a contact team. Even though the situation indicated there was a barricaded suspect, officers knew that delaying their advance on the threat would place the children in grave danger and could cause them to succumb to whatever injuries they had. As officers began their tactical entry into the apartment, they began announcing their presence. As they began approaching a hallway, they could see a subject laying on the bedroom floor. This subject, later identified as a suspect, surrendered immediately by showing his empty hands towards the officers. This suspect was also suffering from a life-threatening self-inflicted gunshot wound. At this time, officers were unsure whether or not this was the suspect, and due to this reason, continued their scan of the apartment. Officers then located 2 children, ages 1 and 4, suffering from life-threatening gunshot wounds. Due to the extremely complex, unsafe, and horrific crime scene in front of them, officers were forced to not only render aid, but be aware of possible threats as the apartment was still not safe. Officer Icarino began rendering aid to the suspect. As he was doing this, it was learned that the firearm used was only feet away from the suspect. Officer Irwin turned his attention to both children and began rescue efforts on the 4-year-old who was unconscious but breathing. Officer Icarino then turned his attention to the 1-year-old who was crying and suffering from a life-threatening gunshot wound. Rather than allow either of their emotions to take control over their efforts, Officer Icarino took the 1-year-old to a fellow officer while speaking kindly and reassuring her she was okay. Officer Irwin, who is a trained EMT, continued rendering aid to the 4-year-old as medics arrived. His training allowed him to speak to medics quickly and efficiently, allowing them to become knowledgeable of the injuries without delay. As the scene was continuing to evolve, Officer Irwin communicated to assisting officers the needs of medics, location of evidence, and oversaw the moving of vehicles to allow the fire department better access. Both of their calm and take charge demeanors allowed everyone else to remain calm and work more efficiently. After this incident, the female victim called Captain Brandon Rogers, commander of the White Marsh Precinct, and expressed her gratitude to all who were involved in this incident. She was thankful Officer Icarino, who rode with her to the hospital and stayed by her side until she was released. In addition, one of the commanding members of the Baltimore County Fire Department remarked the valiant efforts of Officers Icarino and Irwin, as well as their assisting officers, noting in his 30 years of service, this level of partnership during such a chaotic scene has only occurred a handful of times. Officers Icarino and Irwin, with prior knowledge that there may be an armed suspect awaiting their entry into the only door to the location, which if fired upon would be likely to result in their death or serious injury, made entry into the apartment, ultimately saving the life of the 1-year-old child and apprehending the suspect. They did this knowingly and with the understanding that the only other option was to set up a barricade, delaying the aid that could be provided to the victims. In one of the most unsafe situations and in the face of a horrific crime, officers embodied the values of the Baltimore County Police Department by placing the safety of others before themselves. For courage, valor, and bravery demonstrated during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Officers Sean M. Irwin and Officer Jacob M. Icarino. Our next recipients of the Silver Star Award are Sergeant Brendan S. Duker, Corporal Nicholas P. Reagan, and Detective Justin M. Warnick. On February 9, 2023, members of the Baltimore County Police Department were assisting with the search for suspect David Linthicum, who was wanted in reference to the shooting of Officer Barry Jordan. During the evening of February 9th, Detective Chi and assisting members were made aware of a hitchhiker in the area of the search for suspect David Linthicum. Detective Chi was the first in the area of the last known location of the hitchhiker, who later was revealed to be suspect David Linthicum. As Detective Chi approached suspect Linthicum, Detective Chi was immediately fired upon and subsequently wounded by gunfire. Detective Chi defended himself and ultimately responding detectives by returning accurate gunfire, striking his own vehicle that the suspect had now stolen. Sergeant Duker, Corporal Reagan, and Detective Warnick heard the gunfire and immediately drove to the area while hearing screaming on the radio of Signal 13, shots fired, suspect down. As Sergeant Duker, Corporal Reagan, and Detective Warnick arrived, they observed what they initially thought was a suspect laying in the roadway. Upon challenging the person, they could then hear Detective Chi identifying himself. Both Sergeant Duker, Corporal Reagan, and Detective Warnick immediately rushed to help Detective Chi. It should be noted at this time, our three members were unaware of the location of suspect Linthicum and believed the suspect was in the woods with a high-powered rifle waiting to ambush more law enforcement. Nevertheless, Sergeant Duker and Detective Warnick provided rifle cover while Corporal Reagan began life-saving first aid to Detective Chi. They placed themselves directly in the hot zone to rescue their fellow detective. Corporal Reagan observed catastrophic wounds to Detective Chi's right forearm and one of his thighs. Observing these wounds, Corporal Reagan expertly applied a tourniquet to Detective Chi. It was at this time additional detectives arrived on scene and placed themselves in the same unknown situation with extreme risk, placing a vehicle directly in front of the group of detectives in order to shield them. During this time, and without delay, Detective Chi was able to provide the information that the suspect stole his nondescript pickup truck and fled. Detective Chi provided a clear direction of travel and his vehicle description. Moments later, Detective Chi was loaded into the back of a nondescript pickup truck and taken to a medic that was staging for his arrival. As Detective Chi was being evacuated, Corporal Reagan observed another catastrophic wound to the back of Detective Chi's left upper arm and immediately directed a fellow detective to apply a second tourniquet. It was during this time that Corporal Reagan continued to sweep Detective Chi's body and continued noting more catastrophic wounds sustained. While en route to the staging area where the medic was waiting, Detective Chi continued directing his fellow detectives where he needed life-saving first aid, addressing his wounds. Through the efforts of all aforementioned members, Detective Chi survived his wounds. Due to his efforts and quick response in identifying the hitchhiker as suspect David Linthicum, Detective Chi paved the way for the ultimate arrest of suspect Linthicum, who was later convicted of multiple counts of attempted murder of Baltimore County police officers. For courage, valor, and bravery during this incident, the Silver Star Award is presented to Sergeant Brendan S. Duker, Corporal Nicholas P. Reagan, and Detective Justin M. Warnick. Our final presentation this evening will be for the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor is the highest and most prestigious award for which any member is eligible. Ensuring its integrity is never compromised. This award is presented to an officer who, with knowledge of risk, found themselves in a life-threatening situation likely to result in their death or serious injury and intelligently committed themselves to danger. The recipients to receive the Medal of Honor are Corporal Andrew J. Burns, Officer Christopher S. Schanberger, Officer Brandon G. Langley. On November 24, 2023, at approximately 11:35 p.m., Corporal Andrew Burns, Officer Christopher Schanberger, and Officer Brandon Langley responded to an address in Parkville for a domestic disturbance. Upon arrival, Officer Schanberger began his approach to the home. While approaching, it was evident the situation was rapidly deteriorating as the sounds of a woman's pleas for help were heard. Almost immediately, a male shouting aggressively could also be heard. As Officer Schanberger knocked on the door, he positioned himself slightly off-center from the doorway. Within seconds, a harrowing scene unfolded. A female victim, unclothed and clearly in distress, opened the door. Immediately and without delay, the male suspect standing behind her began firing a handgun at her, ultimately striking her. The suspect, now fully aware of Officer Schanberger's presence, then turned his attention to the same and began to walk outside of the home to engage law enforcement. Officer Schanberger, demonstrating remarkable courage under extremely close gunfire, returned fire while standing on the front porch. He also was communicating the situation to his dispatcher for incoming units. He then leapt from the porch and took cover behind a vehicle on the driveway of the same house. During this time, Corporal Burns arrived and without delay was immediately met by the suspect's gunfire. Corporal Burns was at a severe tactical disadvantage. The suspect held a superior position with height advantage and cover of the home. Displaying exceptional bravery in defense of his life and Officer Schanberger's life, Corporal Burns returned fire and struck the suspect, which temporarily neutralized the threat. However, within seconds, the suspect observed Officer Langley arriving and began firing upon him. Officer Langley accurately engaged the suspect with his service handgun as Officer Schanberger and Corporal Burns did the same. All three members neutralized the threat while facing direct gunfire from the suspect. Once neutralized, officers began giving clear, direct orders to the suspect and to one another. Additionally, critical information from all three members was relayed to the dispatcher, who also remained extremely calm and facilitated the dispatch of additional personnel from both the police and fire department. Upon arrival of additional officers, the aforementioned members made their approach, securing the suspect, the victim, and clearing the residence of any additional threats. For courageous actions demonstrated during a life-threatening situation, the Medal of Honor is presented to Corporal Andrew J. Burns, Officer Christopher S. Schanberger, Officer Brandon G. Langley. Thank you, Chief McCullough and Mr. Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my personal congratulations to all of award recipients for their exceptional professionalism and acts of courage. I would like to thank all of the nominators who took the time to highlight the incredible achievements of their colleagues, as well as to Detective Naomi O'Bent and members of the Awards Review Board who dedicate countless hours to ensuring our department members receive the recognition they truly deserve for their extraordinary contributions. I'd also like to thank Lieutenant Jesse Callis from the Police Human Resources Section for his efforts in organizing and coordinating this successful ceremony. Additionally, I want to acknowledge our cadets and to Mrs. Kathy Wallace from the Chief's Office for volunteering their time and assistance this evening. Thank you to Dwayne Britton and Sarah Lieberman from our Forensic Photography Unit and Alex Revere from our Public Affairs Section for making themselves available to document this special occasion. And finally, I would like to thank the JCC Gordon Center for the Performance of Arts for their continued partnership and for graciously accommodating our ceremony this evening. I would also like to remind our awards recipients and their families that photographs can be taken here on the stage immediately following the conclusion of the ceremony. And to all of our guests, cake will be served in the lobby where you first entered the building. At this time, would everyone please rise as Chaplain Norman Lowenthal provides the benediction.
One more round of applause for all of those receiving awards. Thank you. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, we have been moved this evening by the actions and accomplishments of men and women who, through courage and compassion, reflect your ways. Just as you are merciful and just, so too have these individuals extended mercy and justice in moments of great challenge. We thank you for their example, for their steadfastness, their humility, and their willingness to stand in harm's way for the sake of others. May their deeds inspire in each of us a renewed sense of purpose, integrity, and kindness. As we bring this evening to a close, we remember all who dedicate themselves to preserving life and peace. May they be guarded from harm and strengthened in the spirit for the work they do. Grant peace to our community, health to our families, and compassion to our hearts. Bless us that we may continue to go from strength to strength in your service and our service to one another. And let us say, amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Lowenthal. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight and for supporting our department as this reinforces our commitment to serve you and our community. I'd just like to say some of the recipients of the awards tonight that you heard me mention in these incidents, they couldn't be with us this evening. So there would be additional people receiving awards tonight. As you heard, some of the names were more than what are actually here. I just wanted everybody to know that. They just couldn't join us this evening. Would everyone please join me as we end the evening this evening and enjoy your cake and everything else tonight.